Everything we do is under a microscope, and that's good. It's good that we have that level of accountability. It's good that we're raising the standard higher and higher for how we want men to show up on this planet. I know that's what I care about. I just want to make room for when men fail, not to give up on them. Listen up, man. We're on thin ice right now. The margins of error for men are smaller than they have ever been. Now, what I mean by this is that there's such a big microscope that every action a man is taking in his life right now is under, because of the access to social media, the cancel culture that is emerging in our society, and really just the way that we're learning to be as a larger global population, the way that we're learning to exist as millions of humans in one country packed into a small container. We're making it so that even if a man has done everything in his life to the best of his ability, he's a good husband, he's a good father, he gives back to his community, he shows up for work, he shows up for the people that he serves. All it takes is one moment of overwhelm, anxiety, frustration, anger, unexpressed emotion that explodes for that narrative of that man to be completely rewritten. Now, before everybody starts coming at me for this, I just want to make my point clear. All I'm saying is that we need a better and more effective way of handling missteps and failures for all humans, particularly men. There needs to be more consideration for context and circumstances, and a swing towards restorative and rehabilitative ways of addressing failures for men in our society. Now, I'm the last person who is going to make excuses for things like rape, things like sexual abuse, things like gaslighting and taking advantage of people. All of the things that right now are being spoken about and that are being associated with men. The toxic masculine, right? All this stuff that's being regurgitated and spun on the spin cycle in our social media conversations. We got to take a better look at this, because there's a lot more to a man who ends up raping a woman and taking advantage of her. There's a lot more to the boy who goes to his school and ends up shooting up his classmates than the headline that we see on the front page. If you dig a little bit deeper, if you care to dig a little bit deeper into some of these storylines, you recognize that these are people who have gone through significant traumas, bullying, abandonment, abuse, previous to any of this type of behavior. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm a firm believer that there aren't any people born into this planet who emerge with a desire to hurt people, to harm others. I'm a firm believer that there's always more to the story than meets the eye. And sure, I'm not going to ever excuse any of these behaviors, especially when it comes to adults, people who've been on this planet for a long time, who know that our purpose for being here is to uplift our community, to take care of our people, not to harm them. But there has to be some consideration given to the context. What led these individuals to take that action? What circumstances, what combination of factors and variables made that man go and kill his family? What drove that man over the edge just enough so he let his emotions fly and made a mistake, laid his hands on somebody, hurt himself? Why is it so easy for us to pass judgment without consideration, deeper consideration to what's actually going on for these individuals? And these are broad strokes. I get it. There's circumstances and context to every individual unique situation. But I'm getting tired of pulling up the headlines, looking at my social media feed, and seeing people who are rolling every man into this cascade of toxic masculinity and the patriarchy. I'm not here to say that stuff doesn't exist. I'm here to say that it's a oversimplified and unfair and unjust way of viewing a problem facing our society. We just got to think more about this. We got to think more about how are we perpetuating the cycles of behavior by punishing it, by canceling it, by canceling people, by making them feel worse and suffer for the choices that they've made. What if we could gather ourselves and offer restorative and rehabilitative conversations? What if we let the men who take these actions, who do these things to other people, and we give them an opportunity to tell us where that source of that pain comes from? It requires all of us to elevate our consciousness. It requires all of us to take a step above, To recognize that in given the right circumstances, under the right situations, and the right moment, the combination of factors, any of us could step out of character. Just look at yourself for a second. Have you never stepped out of character? Have you never allowed your emotions to get the best of you? Have you never said something, did something, acted in a way that didn't actually represent how you want to be? Especially in a way that harmed somebody to some degree? I'm the first one that's going to preach for accountability. I'm the last one that'll say, hey, let's just look the other way and give everybody a pass for all their misdeeds in our society. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we have to take this into deeper consideration, especially if we care about the future of our society, about the culture that we're giving over to our children. Right now, my kids are learning that the moment that you make one mistake, everything that you've ever done in your life doesn't matter anymore. The person you are, people won't care. The way that you showed up, the nice things that you've done for people, the heartfelt things that you've done for other people, that one moment where you stepped out of line, you were having a bad day, you were having a challenging moment, you let your emotions get the best of you. That's the only thing people are going to remember about you. Tell me how that's just. Tell me how that's okay. Now take a look at all the conversations that have been had over the past 5 years. Conversations around the Me Too movement. Conversations around patriarchy, toxic masculinity, all the ways that we're assessing men as part of the human project that we have going on here as dysfunctional, broken, and wrong. It's happening. Don't deny it, because all you need to do is go and do a Google search about toxic masculinity and recognize that all of that toxic masculinity, the ways that we don't want things to show up on our planet, are being rolled right into our conversations around men. And very quickly, it's becoming a broad stroke that this is the way that all men are. And that is what's crafting and refining this lens through which we look at every single action that every man takes. Now, I also want to be clear. I think it's good that we have greater visibility and accountability on the way that our men are showing up in the world. I'm not saying that we should blur the lenses and look the other way. Believe me, that's not the message here. I'm just asking us to think differently about how we judge, how we assess what it is that we find, what it is that we see when we're looking clearly, when everybody's being held accountable to how they show up in the world. And ask yourself, do you care more about vengeance, punishment, justice in the traditional way that justice has been held, where you experience my pain and there's no way back for you? Or is there something different? Requires a lot of each and every one of us to choose a different way of creating justice, creating peace. Ultimately, it's about healing. It's about healing ourselves. It's about healing and holding space for others to heal themselves. It's about healing years, generations, a whole line of ancestral traumas and pains that we've held on to, and more that we create and perpetuate each and every day. But it's hard out there for us men right now. We're on thin ice. Everything we do is under a microscope. And that's good. It's good that we have that level of accountability. It's good that we're raising the standard higher and higher for how we want men to show up on this planet. I know that's what I care about. I just want to make room for when men fail, not to give up on them. Not to give up. Not to cast them aside, not to exile them, cancel them, remove them from society. Because you don't eliminate cancer simply by removing it from the body. There's a full integrative healing process that's necessary. And we can't achieve that if all we're doing is catching that one moment where somebody steps out of character, steps out of line, and deciding that they are no longer useful, they don't belong in our community anymore. Let's focus on the behavior, not the person. Let's focus on the moment, the action, the misdeed, instead of rolling that into the entirety of that person's character. Are you willing to look at it that way? Are you willing to take a different approach to how you think of justice, how you think of healing, how you think of reconciliation on this planet? Because if not, then it's just going to continue to be open season on the men. It's open season right now. Everyone's got a target on their back. And society at large is waiting for you to step out of line, waiting for you to step a little too heavily on the ice, waiting for you to make a mistake. What are you going to do? How are you going to advance this conversation? How do you need to show up to create a greater or a different culture around justice? greater culture around healing in our community. Conversation's open. Tell me what you think. That's just my idea. That's my perspective. I want to hear yours. So tell us in the comments. Tell us in your messages. Let us stir this pot and get this conversation going so that we can come up with a new strategy together collectively as a community. And if you're digging what we're dropping here at Rising Man, make sure you subscribe and follow up next week when we drop another Monday morning meditation. Until then, much love and gratitude to each and every one of you. Blessings.